Welcome to the Cowboys Report, where we break down everything happening in Dallas Nation. Once again, Jerry Jones is stirring the pot, this time by hinting at a possible move before the NFL trade deadline on November 4th. After this week's win, Jerry had this to say: "I think that old sign is out, open for business. We're always looking." As the season goes on, some teams realize they're not contenders anymore because of losses or tough circumstances. That's when good players start becoming available. Teams shift their focus, manage their salary caps, and opportunities start showing up. And yes, we're ready to improve this team if the right deal comes along. Now that's classic Jerry, confident, strategic, and just mysterious enough to keep everyone guessing. But here's the big question: will the Cowboys actually make a move, or will Jerry just sit back and wait for calls to come to him? Before we get deeper into potential trade targets, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and share it with your fellow fans. And of course, hit that bell icon so you never miss an update on America's team. Alright, back to it, let's talk trades. We've been analyzing a range of possible trade candidates, especially from the struggling teams across the league. Right now, 8 teams have 1 win or fewer, and that's where opportunity often knocks. I've been in touch with insiders covering each of those teams, asking one simple question: who are the realistic trade candidates? After gathering all their insights, we've narrowed down a few names who could genuinely help Dallas, players who fit the system and could make a difference down the stretch. One interesting mention came from our Jets insider, Patrick Seatman, who suggested Breece Hall. And while it might sound bold, that's the kind of name that makes you wonder: could Jerry pull the trigger this time? When it comes to trade value, the Cowboys have to play it smart. Sure, Breece Hall would be an exciting addition, but with Javonte Williams lighting it up this season, the price tag for Hall might be way too high. Sometimes, just because you can make a deal doesn't mean you should. If Dallas starts flashing that first-round pick, they can get almost anyone, but is it worth it? You have to find the right balance between boldness and common sense. Now, looking around the league, let's talk about the Cleveland Browns. Forget Myles Garrett, that's not happening, stop dreaming. Jerome Ford? Maybe, but the Cowboys might already have similar production in-house. David Njoku is solid, but tight end isn't a need right now. Wyatt Teller is a strong guard in a contract year, but Dallas doesn't need help on the interior line at this point. One name that does fit the Cowboys' mold, though, is Devin Bush. He's the kind of player they love to take a chance on, a former early-round pick who didn't quite live up to expectations early on. After struggling in Pittsburgh and Seattle, Bush seems to be finding his rhythm again with the Browns. At 5 feet 11 inches, 234 pounds, he's a bit undersized, but he's athletic and has shown flashes this season. If the Cowboys want a linebacker who's affordable and still has upside, Bush could be a realistic target. Let's move to Baltimore, another team that could have pieces worth exploring. Keaton Mitchell is intriguing if you're hunting for a running back, but again, tight end and offensive tackle aren't priorities right now. Trenton Simpson, a backup linebacker, hasn't been getting much playing time or making big waves yet. But one name, one huge name, stands out: Roquan Smith. Our Ravens insider, Joey Peterson, threw that name out there, and it definitely turns heads. Would Dallas dare to make a move for one of the most dominant linebackers in football? It would take a lot, both in draft capital and salary, but imagine Roquan lining up in that star defense beside Micah Parsons. So, what do you think? Should the Cowboys go all in for a player like Roquan Smith? Type Y for yes or N for no in the comments and let's see where Cowboys Nation stands. Now let's dig deeper into what Joey Peterson told me about the possibility of Roquan Smith being traded by the Ravens. He said it's unlikely, but not impossible. Here's why it's even being discussed: Roquan hasn't looked quite like himself this season, especially before his injury. He's currently sidelined, and moving him would free up more than $20 million in cash over the next 2 years for Baltimore. That kind of money always gets front offices thinking. Still, the Ravens wouldn't just give him away. If they were to trade Roquan, they'd want a serious return, likely a difference-maker on the defensive line or a proven edge rusher. And let's be real, Sam Williams wouldn't move the needle enough to make that deal happen. Roquan's production has dipped slightly compared to his peak in 2022, when he was playing some of the best football of his career. But it's hard to put too much blame on him this year. The Ravens' defense as a whole has been inconsistent and banged up. Even with that said, a healthy Roquan Smith would instantly elevate Dallas's defense. His leadership, energy, and tackling instincts would fit perfectly alongside Micah Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence. The problem, though, is cost, both in draft capital and money. Yes, he's cheap for now, but starting next season he's due around $20 million per year, with no guaranteed money left. That means the Ravens could cut him anytime without penalty, giving them all the leverage in trade talks. So while it's an exciting idea, it's also a long shot. If Baltimore's season continues to spiral, maybe they'll listen, but right now, this feels more like a monitor it, don't bet on it kind of situation. Roquan Smith in a Cowboys uniform? It would be electric, but for now, it's just a dream on the edge of possibility. Now, shifting gears, let's talk about the Miami Dolphins. We've already covered names like Bradley Chubb and Jaylon Phillips, so there's no need to revisit those too much here. Instead, there's another player worth mentioning, a veteran who could quietly solve a big problem in Dallas, Minkah Fitzpatrick. Minkah might not be at his absolute peak like in previous seasons, but he's still one of the most reliable and intelligent safeties in the game. His instincts, range, and ability to read an offense are elite. And right now, with the Cowboys' secondary dealing with injuries and inconsistency, adding a leader like Minkah could stabilize the entire back end. He's not cheap, but he's not outrageous either, and more importantly, he brings playoff experience, leadership, and that no-nonsense toughness the Cowboys' defense thrives on. Dallas doesn't necessarily need another big personality in the locker room, but they do need someone who can bring calm and control when things get chaotic in coverage. That's exactly what Minkah offers. There's also a bit of buzz about Jordan Brooks, though his availability remains unclear. Still, it's the kind of name that makes sense, a hard-hitting linebacker with youth, energy, and upside. The Cowboys have been a contender on paper for years. Moves like these, strategic, targeted, and fearless, could be the difference between just another good season and a real Super Bowl run. Back when Minkah Fitzpatrick was first on the market a few years ago, the Cowboys actually showed interest. They didn't push hard enough, though, never offered more than a second-round pick, and Pittsburgh ended up landing a franchise safety. Maybe this time around, if the opportunity came again, Dallas wouldn't hesitate. Now let's move to New Orleans, a team that's been floating in trade rumors for weeks. Our Saints insider, Trace Gerard, isn't convinced they'll actually become sellers, but it's worth keeping an eye on. The Saints roster is full of big names, Demario Davis, Alvin Kamara, Cameron Jordan, but all of them are aging and have openly said they want to retire as Saints. That makes trades tough. As for their young stars, Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed, both are electric wideouts, but Dallas doesn't need receivers right now, and New Orleans can't afford to trade away their best weapons with a young quarterback still developing. Justin Reed could make sense in theory, but financially it's tricky. Pete Werner is a solid linebacker but probably not the needle mover Dallas needs. And names like Trevor Penning, Brian Bresee, or Taysom Hill just don't fit the Cowboys' needs at all, so let's rule those out immediately. Now, I want to hear from you. Which player should the Cowboys realistically target in a trade? Be smart about it, you're not getting Myles Garrett, but there are plenty of options that could make a real difference. Drop your picks in the comments. And speaking of possibilities, let's head out west to Las Vegas. Our Raiders insider, Mitchell Renz, sent over a list of potential names: Jacoby Myers, Dylan Parham, Jackson Powers-Johnson, and Tyree Wilson. Notice who's not on that list: Max Crosby. Yeah, that's the name everyone brings up, but let's be honest, unless you're willing to give up multiple first-round picks, it's not happening. And even then, that might undo everything you've been building around Micah Parsons and this defense. Sometimes, being aggressive means knowing when not to overpay. When it comes to the Raiders, the question isn't whether Tyree Wilson is available, it's whether he's the right fit. And honestly, the Cowboys don't just need another edge rusher. They need the guy, a proven difference maker who can dominate opposite Micah Parsons. So what about the Tennessee Titans? They could be an interesting trade partner. Maybe they start shopping Caleb Farley, who's shown flashes of talent but has struggled to stay consistent. Kevin Zeitler is another possible name, a veteran guard with plenty of experience, but would Tennessee really weaken their offensive line just to move him? Especially when they're trying to protect Cameron Ward and stabilize that offense? It's unlikely. Jeffrey Simmons, though, that's a name that always makes people's ears perk up. He's been outstanding this season, playing at a potential Pro Bowl or even All-Pro level. If the Cowboys didn't already have Osa Odigizua and Motzie Smith, Simmons would be a dream fit. But let's be real, paying close to $60 million across 3 defensive tackles next year makes no financial sense. You can't justify giving up premium assets just to rent another DT when you've already invested in that position. And what about Tyjae Spears? He's explosive and could be a great addition in the right situation. But again, is spending draft capital on a running back really what Dallas needs right now? Probably not. The Cowboys' focus should be on impact defenders or elite-level playmakers who can push this team over the top, not just adding depth. Now, let's look at the New York Giants. Divisional trades are always rare, but not impossible. We've seen teams like the Browns and Bengals make them happen. Still, most of New York's roster doesn't align with what Dallas needs. Jalen Hyatt, talented, but receiver isn't a priority. Daniel Bellinger, solid tight end, but that position's already set. Evan Neal could be intriguing as a future free agent rehab project, but not worth a trade right now. However, one name that does stand out, Kayvon Thibodeaux. That's the type of player who sparks curiosity. Raw talent, athleticism, and youth. If the Giants ever made him available, it would definitely get Jerry Jones' attention. Now, when it comes to Kayvon Thibodeaux, things get interesting. He's under contract through next season, and yes, his deal isn't cheap. But with the Giants investing heavily in Brian Burns and Abdul Carter, Thibodeaux could quietly become the odd man out in that rotation. The Cowboys were high on Thibodeaux coming out of Oregon, and for good reason. He's explosive, disruptive, and when he's locked in, he looks like the guy every defense wants coming off the edge. If the price is right, this is exactly the type of move that could pay off big for Dallas. Imagine pairing Micah Parsons and Kayvon Thibodeaux, 2 relentless pass rushers flying off the edges. That's nightmare fuel for opposing quarterbacks. As for Bobby Okereke, he's cooled off a bit this year. The numbers tell the story: no sacks, no interceptions, no tackles for loss. Sometimes stats can lie, but in this case, it feels accurate. He's been solid, not spectacular. Still, if the Cowboys are looking for stability in the middle of the defense, Okereke could be a name worth monitoring. Then there's Deonte Banks, a young corner who might be more of a rehab project at this stage. Dallas already expects to get Kalen Carson and Trayvon Diggs back soon, plus Darren Bland and Kaiir Elam are holding things down for now. So cornerback isn't exactly an urgent need, though having depth never hurts in the long grind of an NFL season. Overall, when you look at the Giants roster, there are names worth watching, but Thibodeaux is the one that really stands out. If the opportunity ever came up, that could be a blockbuster move that shifts the balance of power in the NFC East.